thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. Hope you guys all had a very, 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 very Merry Christmas out there. Today, it's Tuesday, December 26th, and today is, that's right, it's National Whiners Day for all you that just got nothing more than a lump of coal or maybe just a pack of socks for Christmas. It's also Thank You Note Day for all you real winners out there that got a shit ton of presents. And it's National Candy Cane Day. And it's a national trappers holiday, apparently, because it is also National Boxing Day.
Trapper die.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look down below on your screen to see where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube. And you can also find us on Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. We're glad you decided to join us today. But kicking it off today, that's right, we have the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte, who's back from a long Christmas break of hibernation and Zozo's performances over the weekend. That's right, it is the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte.
And the crowd goes wild.
Happy Kwanzaa, everybody. Today's the first day of Kwanzaa.
I thought you were going to say Happy Cabbage Day or something like that.
It is Black Hanukkah.
You know what? It didn't even say that on my it didn't say that on my daily calendar that today was the first day of Kwanzaa, or else I would have mentioned that. My bad.
Yeah, that's like your daily calendar.
It sounds like your daily calendar is culturally biased, Jason. It's not my fault.
No, you also have 8 crazy nights.
Yeah, Kwanzaa is
every
8
night's
days.
crazy.
Yeah, 8 nights.
I'll tell you
That's
what.
right.
One way or another. But anyways, let's talk about 2023. It's been a mixed bag of a year for the global cannabis community. As we look to what the future might hold, now's the time for every one of these analytics shops to process what happened before applying their logic and philosophies and offering predictions as to what they believe is going to happen next. High Times' AJ Harrington reported yesterday that a UK-based cannabis data, media, and tech company, Prohibition Partners, released their 4th edition of its Global Cannabis Report Friday, boldly predicting worldwide legal adult use cannabis sales to nearly double, growing to nearly $50 billion in 2027. But should we be listening? The firm credits its bold predictions drivers as momentum in the global cannabis reform and new European rec markets opening over the next 3 years. In introducing the new report, Prohibition Partners said that North America remains the global powerhouse of legal cannabis with strong state-by-state growth, promising regulatory reform and international isolationism in the U.S., while Canada's strong international presence but challenging domestic environment persists, and also that Europe continues to be a somewhat fragmented and heavily regulated business environment, seeing steady growth concentrated in key countries, incremental but important progress on adult use legalization, and ongoing legal confusion over CBD. The report forecasts global annual sales of recreational cannabis totaling approximately $49.7 billion by 2027, nearly double the current rate of $24.9 billion. It says this growth will largely be driven by continued policy reform in the U.S. and Europe, with North America remaining the global leader in worldwide adult use cannabis sales. Overall sales of cannabis in Canada, currently approach $6 billion. Or about 4.5 billion in U.S. freedom bucks, with 93% of that of the total representing recreational cannabis sales, and remaining 7% coming from sales of medical cannabis. Legal sales of cannabis in the U.S. totaled about 26 billion in 2022, including 17 billion in recreational cannabis sales and almost 9 billion in sales of medical marijuana. Total legal sales in the U.S. are expected to reach 33 billion by 2027. The Prohibition Partners also takes into account trap sales, which are mostly left out of the public-facing data sets, which is why I like this one. They say the approximate unregulated sales included in the total. This report pegs the entire U.S. market at about 100 billion currently on an annual basis. Adult use legalization coming to Europe, and in Europe, adult use legalization is still in its infancy, with Malta being the first country to legalize, although only nonprofit cultivators and dispensaries are currently allowed to operate. Switzerland is currently testing several pilot program models, and the Netherlands is also trying research-based legalization. Germany's adult use plan expected to go into effect early 2024, and other regions also included in the expansion of global cannabis market include Latin America and Africa, which Prohibition Partners says are both slowly moving towards becoming sources of supply for the global industry while keeping access for patients limited domestically. Oceania continues to be a hotspot for growth in both imports and exports, but the Asian market remains virtually untapped, according to the report, with Thailand and Japan cited as notable exceptions. Prohibition Partners senior analyst Alex Cortejai co-authored the report and said that the worldwide cannabis industry made new strides over the past 12 months in both adult use and medical reports, and projected continued growth going into the new year. In an email to High Times, he wrote, 2023 has been a challenging but progressive year for the global cannabis industry. In Europe, we saw the first legal recreational cannabis sales with the pilot projects in Switzerland, and the first recreational cannabis controlled supply chain sales in Netherlands, as well as progress with Germany's adult use framework. Globally, medical cannabis patient numbers have also been increasing. In North America, the market continues to grow, with U.S. states such as Kentucky, Ohio, Minnesota opening their markets to either medical or recreational cannabis. We've also seen some progressive reform of cannabis policy globally and advances in commercialization, getting solid foundations for a positive 2024 for the global cannabis as a whole. Although 50 billion globally in 2027 seems like a crazy number currently, I personally think they might be being a little conservative here. I do like the fact that this shop outside of America is taking into account the trap sales, which nobody else really seems to want to touch because of uncertainty. But those are just my thoughts on it. Global market is in its hockey stick moment right now as we see more reform across the board. And we're also seeing more and more folks just leaning towards recreational sales. But those are just my thoughts. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street. Love to hear what the rest of the team thinks of this one.
Why are they called Prohibition Partners?
Because it sounded cheeky back in 2017 when they decided they'd snap up and help us to understand things.
I think probably because it was available for them.
The URL was free.
It's just I feel like Project Sam should own Prohibition Partners.
What do you think about these numbers, Jason?
I mean,
think they're spot on? I think the 50 billion globally by 2027 is very, very conservative number. I think it's going to be a lot bigger than that.
I think it could be. I think it could be, but I think a lot of the policy is going to dictate where that number actually is, and how much of that number is actually really able to be quantified and not just throwing shit on a wall.
Right. But I think also the intersection of technology right now and AI being applied across the supply chain, globally is going to speed this up even quicker.
Yeah, but
I think people are going to be running. I think people are going to be firing on all cylinders before possibly leapfrogging a lot of this legislation.
AI ain't quantifying the trap.
Real problem.
AI ain't quantifying the trap.
Yeah, optimize the trap.
Neither are they, okay? And neither are they. And I've seen this time and time again when data companies claim that they're taking into account that which they can.
That's what these guys are doing.
You know what would be?
That's why I said. That's why I actually.
Where do they get the info from?
Yeah, show me the methodology.
I think they get it. I think they get it from Telegram accounts.
Well, they said approximately. They said right now. They said right now the U.S. is at about 25 billion.
Yeah, but what are they basing it off of?
Hold on. And they said they account. They said we say that with an asterisk because we believe that there's approximately right now the U.S. market is at 100 billion given all of the illegal sales. So they're saying that the illegal sales in the U.S. are 3 times as much as the legal sales.
But here's the thing. I don't understand how they extrapolate that information.
I don't.
No, they can't.
They can't.
Like I said, they can't. But they're the only ones making an attempt to acknowledge.
What do you mean? We make attempts every day, Rico, but we're not getting put in the paper.
Walk me through this. So you're like, yo, did the box arrive? Great. Yeah, it did. How's the paper? It checks out. Cool.
They could be pushing too. They're over in the UK. They could be the ones. They could be the ones behind all those bags being caught up at London Heathrow. I don't know, yeah. Jason. You tell me. You're over in UK more than I am.
From it. Check in and let Prohibition partners know the moves I'm making that are off.
I think Jason Beck. Beck is covertly feeding information to Prohibition partners and giving them those $100 billion numbers.
Yeah,
How about that? That's my conspiracy theory for the morning.
Yeah, I tabulate my trap sales and I turn them into the Prohibitionist network. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But the official prediction of 50 billion globally. Do you think that's spot on? Do you think that's conservative like I do? Do you think that is overblowing it?
Definitely.
I think it's very conservative.
I think it's a good start just to throw a number out there.
There's nothing wrong with having placeholder numbers, but I think one of the reasons why other organizations aren't trying to extrapolate the trap volume is because it's
extrapolate, if you will.
I already went there, and that was my previous. It's not my fault. I got the worst microphone on the team, and nobody can hear my funnies.
Don't worry, we'll help you out one day.
I don't understand how anybody can reasonably support their guesstimate. It's good to have a placeholder because it acknowledges that it exists. But Prohibition Partners doesn't have deep legacy connections.
How do you know? They could have the most poppin' Telegram
Okay, well, take that out of the equation as they did with their $50 billion prediction and give me your assessment on the $50 billion. The $50 billion number has nothing to do with their trap approximations that they're making. I was acknowledging it. I was giving them props for being the only one that actually says, although we think that it's around $100 billion, we can't say it is, but we think it's $100 billion.
I think it's probably bigger. But.
I think if you take all the police reports, from one calendar year and add that all of that up, I think you could make an extrapolation and quantify that as what the police caught as 10% of the overall black market, and then quantify at that valuation that law enforcement gives, and then quantify that, and then you could capture the whole black market.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way that they said that they believe that Latin America and Africa are going to be the biggest exporters. When the dust settles.
Well, I think you look at Colombia right now. Look at Colombia already. Colombia is already one of the largest exporters.
Yeah, Colombia already think about it. Like Colombia already has the framework with the global. I mean, like it or not, the global drug trade that has been flowing. They have all the channels. They have all the trade routes there.
Yep. And Africa has the cheapest workforce that you're going to find anywhere on the planet.
That's not cool.
Colombia's pretty cheap too.
Is it really?
It's $5 a pound to grow. So
I bet you it's $3. I bet you it's $3 in Africa.
Maybe $5 a pound
just to one up you
to compete.
Just to one up you, Todd.
The question isn't how low of the price per pound can we grow cannabis in foreign countries. The question is, how do we drive the price down to zero by exploiting yet another region of agrarian workers. Let's make sure they don't have any health insurance.
That's the way global capitalism works.
Are we providing jobs, Yarrow? I think that's a little, we're providing jobs. Yarrow.
Jobs don't matter unless they're sustainable and there's something that somebody can really sink their teeth into.
Sustainable, that's a greeny word. All right, they just need to be good paying jobs and help benefit their community.
Good paying jobs. That's what I
not sustainable. Sustainable is way too much of a greeny word.
Yeah. We're gonna start calling you Yarrow de Silva.
Good paying jobs is
Yarrow de Silva.
Yeah, de Silva, Lulu over there.
This is going to be a Yarrow de Silva moment for sure.
Oh man,
what do you think? You've done some international work, Saman. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, truly, there's no other, option for like mass cultivation other than Africa or South America. There's just not enough area. There's the labor. Obviously, we've touched on that. That's a huge part of this. Cannabis is still going to be grown everywhere. You're going to have like this is going to be just like a regional thing that happens. It's going to be really expensive wines coming from California still. Of course, really expensive weed coming from California still. But there's just like, a limited amount of resources here for us to do that. We have to go through hoop after hoop to kind of get into a position, and you can go into these other countries and you start making commerce internationally right now. So, I think that South America is great. I actually have a story about Colombia today, which is going to be interesting. So we are going to dive into this topic a little more later. So we'll save some of the comments for then.
Saman, don't you just call all those hoops? Don't you just call those hoops that everyone has to hop through houses?
I mean, this isn't like get us like Friday after next status where you just house to house.
We got to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
How's it going, guys? Saman Razani coming to you from Green Street here with Jason Beck, smoking on the best weed in the world. Did you know that we have an audio-only version of our podcast available on Apple, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify? Tune in now and check it out.
We're so smooth on YouTube, but it's so choppy here.
Oh, you're going to be all right, Saman.
You know what? Because it's choppa style. Coming on the stage next, y'all know who it is. It's the Hyatt 9 head honcho, the man known for smoking the best weed in the world wherever he goes. Cannabis industry's very own Kaiser Sose and Donald Trump's favorite pothead in the world, Jason Beck.
You know what? You might be really right about that.
The crowd goes wild.
You might be really right about that, Rico. You might be onto something today, just possibly. Well, I'll tell you what. Hey, and Adam, there's a picture in this article if you can grab it up if it's possible. Because let me tell you guys, man, it's the day after Christmas, and you know what? This is for all of the trappers out there heading out to Thailand, and and there's also the picture of the dude getting arrested because a Vietnamese student in Taipei was nabbed for transporting marijuana, you guys. A Vietnamese student surnamed Wu was caught utilizing an international parcel service to transport drugs from Vietnam to Taiwan, according to an Aviation Police Bureau and Taipei Customs Bureau announcement on Tuesday, December 26th. Authorities had seized 2 different parcels on July 20th containing what was billed as 17 cans of matcha green tea powder, which was a disguise to conceal the Class 2 narcotic marijuana. The drug weighed in at 1,168 grams and 1,002 grams, respectively. After checking parcel records, they found the recipient was located in Shrenking District, New Taipei City. They contacted the Tioegan District Prosecutor's Office to investigate per CNA, and a task force preliminary investigation found that the recipient of the package was a man named Wu. Later, it was found that the consignee had signed for multiple international parcels and had actively tracked the status of such shipments. The police had monitored the individual for many days, finding that he was a Vietnamese student studying in Taiwan and employed on a part-time basis at a hot pot restaurant in Wanahua. It was surprising that Wu did not respond to the parcel service company's calls to pick up the package or sign for the goods. Well, duh. The police eventually decided to apprehend Wu when he left his residence. After investigation, it was found that he had participated in an online group in Vietnam to sell marijuana, and furthermore, he had searched for information on his mobile phone about how to smoke marijuana and how to sell it without being detected. I wonder if that was on ChatGPT. Wu eventually confessed that he had been part of a marijuana selling ring to help subsidize his rent and daily living expenses for just NT, which is the currency, 7,000 NT, which is basically 226 US dollars. He provided his cell phone number and address to receive the illicit package to forward it onward. And at the moment, the case has been transferred to the Taiwan District Prosecutor's Office for investigation and prosecution on suspicion of violating the Narcotics Hazard Prevention Act. Well, it's not such a bright, shiny day after Christmas for this guy. But what do you guys have to say about this Taiwanese student who is trap-tastic?
I want to know if his weed was included in that survey.
What's that, Todd?
Was his weed that he was selling included in that last survey?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I bet you they didn't. I bet you they didn't. I bet you they didn't.
Thailand and Japan with the asterisks on Asia.
Yeah. I bet you prohibitionists they didn't quantify this, that's for sure.
I would vote for him for mayor because anybody who understands the fundamental connection between cannabis and hot pot is a friend of mine and an ally at the kitchen table.
Oh boy.
You know what? This is interesting because the whole Taiwan and China U.S. debate heating up, and apparently President Xi telling Joe Biden to stand down on Taiwan because Taiwan will be absorbed by the mother country. Like, this is good. It's interesting to see things heating up out there, how China will react to stuff like this, and if it's being traced to Vietnam, but it's going into Taiwan, and how they handle.
That's probably what's happening, Rico. That's probably what's happening. Yeah. The Chinese government's getting all up in their shit and saying, "Yo, we're about to clamp down on all you foreigners coming into Taiwan to study and to go to school," and they're flexing a little bit, I bet.
All these westernized thinkers coming in there thinking that they're going to bring their, the devil's lettuce over here. Like, China wants to export that shit. They don't want nothing imported.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
they're probably going to start making some examples of people.
Yeah, I mean, definitely more sinister than that probably when we're talking about the Chinese government. But we'll see. I think that this guy is like one of many millions of people in Southeast Asia that's like, hey, it's just weed. It grows in Vietnam, grows in Laos. I mean, we know that there's a huge export from America to Thailand, but there's a lot of like local Southeast Asian cannabis farmers and cultivation as well. So, this is a form of currency. If we start looking at it like it's a form of currency, then we won't have these issues. And I think that's kind of the thing. This is trade. This is international trade. This is an agricultural commodity. We need to start adopting those principles when we're kind of disseminating this information globally.
On the other hand, like it kind of makes me take interest in what the trap looks like in China right now.
Oh, I can tell you what the trap looks like in China. I mean, they
trapping cards, bro. They're in that card trapping biz. And Spice might have calmed down a little bit for him though.
I mean, I bought some weed in China one time, and a lot of it actually comes from guys who are kids of different
diplomats and stuff.
Yeah, different diplomats, exactly, different diplomats, and that's where I got mine from. Is they just walk into China, no problem, no search, no nothing, boom, there's the package there, get it in, and from my understanding, what the Chinese government is, as long as you're not selling it to actually Chinese and you're only selling it to tourists, then they're not going to bother you. But the moment you start selling it to their actual citizens, that's when you're going to get a problem.
Well, if it was that simple, the people doing it wouldn't be the ones who have that diplomatic immunity, right?
I don't know. I mean, when I was in China, I literally was smoking everywhere, and in the Chinese culture, cannabis is not prevalent. They just seen it as like typical smoking. The people that will snitch on you will be the foreigners that actually know what weed smells like.
I just had this vision of like you as Kung Fu Panda.
I walked up to a cop.
Mouth and going through the temples and waddling around, just like, oh my God, that was delicious. Little cloud wafting. You're like, I'm good. I know a diplomat, son.
I pulled the Todd Denkin while I was out there, and I actually walked up to the cop and I had him light my cigar and everything, and it was no problem.
Nice.
Jason Beck has a Weibo and a TikTok account. Put that on it.
Oh boy.
Kung Fu Beck.
Yeah, that's right.
He gets locked up. He's like, Dana, what are you doing tomorrow?
You guys are so crazy. You guys are.
No, I can't make it to New Hampshire, but listen,
it's actually Maine, Yarrow.
Yeah.
It wasn't Maine. Yeah, my Maine man. My bad.
Man. You know, it's where they have good weed at, Yarrow.
Shout out Maine. Shout out all the weed growers and the hash makers in Maine.
Yes.
Big ups to
He doesn't have enough social credits. He doesn't have enough social credits left to travel to China anymore.
Oh,
He can't get sponsored.
You know, we're going to keep this train moving. You guys are just utterly ridiculous this morning. I'm glad you guys had a good Christmas. But we're going to move it into
Citizen
the
Beck.
man who reminds women over 50 how to say hello again. He's a plant formulation specialist. And, of course, that's right. It is none other than Mr. Saman Razani.
Hello. I wasn't prepared. Gotta get my shit together here.
Must have been busy rolling a joint. And you're
I was
Yeah,
busy rolling
exactly.
one.
He delivers the stories like he's rolling a blunt.
Exactly.
Hey, fuck
One
you guys,
thing.
okay?
On in 2 hours.
Stop the cap. All right, give me just a second here. Now I'm all flustered
man.
tonight. Now you got me all flustered on television.
Come on,
Shit.
Saman.
Remember my first time
Give
reading a
him a
news
little,
story.
Christmas pass over here.
I'm actually so full. I can't even think. I'm gonna eat this meal. I think I'm gonna digest this meal for the next like 2 days. Christmas was great. I hope everyone had a great Christmas holiday, Kwanzaa, Festivus, Hanukkah. You know, all of the celebratory things. And I'm just trying to be as American as possible since I was a youngster. You know, so Christmas is pretty big in our holiday celebrations. But it's meaningless for us other than just the consumerism of it all, just like most everybody else. So that was our day. This article coming from Reuters. This is a Reuters article focusing on Colombia, and so hopefully we have some more discussions about the global cannabis trade. From Reuters, focus Colombia's cannabis industry in crisis over regulatory political hurdles. In Sobachoc, Colombia, December 21. More than 17 acres of land owned by a Colombian-Canadian company near Bogota were once meant to grow 25 varieties of cannabis, but over the past year, weeds have overtaken the greenhouses and 200 of its 218 employees have been fired. The company is victim of long-running problems for Colombia's legal marijuana industry, which attracted huge investments after cannabis was legalized for medical use in 2017. At the time, Colombia was one of the first countries in Latin America to pass such legalization and held out the promise of legalizing marijuana sales for recreational use next. 6 years later, a number of local cannabis producers are facing closure because of regulatory demands for expensive and years-long studies on medicine composition before products can be sold domestically, say industry players. Analysts and sector industry associations say as well. In addition, a law to legalize recreational use of cannabis failed for the 5th time in Congress last week, and a measure coming into force in February will oblige companies to destroy inventories which are over 2 years old. Sounds like New York. We're going from bad to worse. It's slow agony and the clock is going against us with pressure from partners and without cash flow, said the owners of Colombian-Canadian company who asked for anonymity because they are seeking a new investment to save his $20 million business that he set up in 2018. Since cannabis for medical use became legal, the sector has attracted an estimated $500 million in foreign investment, but much of that has not been recouped, according to industry group Asacol Canna. Many investors are from Canada, which was itself in the process of legalizing recreational use of marijuana and was considered a potential destination for Colombian exports. The industry overcame regulatory bottlenecks on exports in 2021, but its fortunes have slumped sharply this year. Some 200 companies shuttered this year, bringing the number of closures to 600, or nearly 50% of the companies founded since the law legalizing medical use has passed, according to Asolcana. All this comes despite leftist President Gustavo Petro's stated ambition to relax the policy on marijuana, whose domestic consumption is higher than that of Colombia's more infamous drug crop, cocaine. Colombian law allows people to grow up to 20 plants and carry up to 20 grams for personal use, though selling marijuana is illegal. Unless the sale of cannabis for recreational use is made legal, the local market will remain in the hands of the criminals rather than licensed companies, said Asacol Cana President Camilo de Guzman. Chiron Life Sciences, ticker KHRN.V, a company with operations in Colombia that is listed in Toronto, has already shuttered a $15 million medical marijuana plantation and a cosmetics line made with cannabis. It still serves about 5,000 patients in the clinics in Colombia, where it is allowed to distribute personalized cannabis-based medications, but has closed similar clinics in the United Kingdom, Brazil, and Peru. Marijuana is not covered by Colombian insurance providers, a huge break on sales, said Chiron President Alvo Torres. Several industry executives said that they expect more industry-friendly rules, including those needed for insurers to cover marijuana for medical use, would follow the 2017 law, but the progress has been slow. If the regulation is achieved, industry could grow again. The problem is how to hold on until then, Torres said. Chiron stock was trading at $4.05, 5 Canadian cents, dollars in 2019, but slumped to 4 cents in Canadian dollars is in May, the last time it was traded. Without a legal domestic market for cannabis, companies operating out of Colombia are limited to pursuing exported sales from which average $5 million a year, according to government trade organization ProColombia. It was a mistake not developing the markets before, said Mauricio Kraus, director of Plena Global, which exports to the UK, Germany, Israel, and Australia. We don't have a local market where we can support cash flow. In response to Reuters' questions, Colombia's food and medicine regulator, INVIMA, said in most cases, those seeking authorization for medical marijuana products present incomplete documentation. It is necessary to comply with established legal and technical requirements, it said. The Ministries of Health, Justice, and Agriculture, also known to have a hand in marijuana regulation, did not respond to the request for comment. The Petro government has not detailed why regulation on marijuana front has been slow, but the trouble echoes those of the past two administrations who face similar issues. And that's the story out of Colombia today. Guys, what do you all have to say about, the similarities, between the U.S. and the, external, U.S. markets? I don't think Colombia is necessarily unique to this. I think it's all over. But there's a distinct difference in the way that our businesses work. The dispensary model here versus, the pharmacy model in other countries, namely Colombia, as we heard in the story. So, what do we think? There's obviously more. There's more of a local market developed in America, but we have our issues. What would we prefer? Would we prefer an open market where we could distribute through pharmacy, or do we think dispensaries are better? And what do we think about holding on for dear life like everyone's doing in America with their cannabis industry? Let's hear from you guys.
The only difference between a dispensary and a pharmacy, Saman, is the spelling. You
have to have a pharmacist.
They serve the exact same purpose. Okay.
Yeah, but the requirements.
You walk in to get your weed and you walk out. Okay, it's the same thing.
It's different.
It's a specialty drug, right? It's a specialty pharmacy.
Yes.
I can't get Tylenol in your place, right?
Right.
can't, buy a bandage for my sprained ankle in your place.
If they allowed us to sell those types of things, we would sell them if people were buying them.
Of course, but they won't. Right.
With Colombia, I know they're dealing with a lot of the same issues because a lot of these folks are still waiting on U.S. to make the first move. Right, they're still waiting on U.S. to make the first move to move forward on a lot of this stuff, and investors are getting antsy with that. I think it just goes back, just follow the money. Like, how long ago were a lot of these mega corporations that have these giant grows and shit everywhere? How long ago were they incorporated? Their runway might be running out right now, whereas we eclipse that magical 5-year number. A lot of these companies, they pretty much had a blank check going into 5 years, and now they're reflecting on that, like, yo, why has this not lifted off yet? And so I think we're going to see a lot of these. Colombia is more of an established market, but the longer that everybody else waits on the U.S. to set precedent on a lot of these things, the more of these quote unquote crises we're going to see.
You know what it sounds like to me,
and the stronger the trap will get in each of these nations too.
You know what it sounds like to me, Rico? Sounds like,
what's that?
Sounds like Bidenomics have impacted Colombia.
5 years ago, who was the president 5 years ago, Jason?
Who was the president 5 years ago?
But here's the reality too: is Colombia? We're talking about one of the most corrupt places, right? So it's like
on the planet, right?
Exactly. What, $500 million of investment capital went in? How much of that actually went to the businesses and supporting a foundational infrastructure rather than greasing the wheels of the political wheels to get a license or to get
definitely need to be greased.
If you don't have any greasing on the political wheels, you don't really have an industry.
Especially in a place like that. So do you think it takes more money? Does it take billions more to create the foundation that they're looking for to sustain an actual Colombian marketplace? Or do we think that people are just going to grow their weed in places like that, smoke their own shit, and they don't really care locally? And this is just
I think places like that, they're not going to let those plants go to waste. They're going to use them for something.
They're not going to throw them out like $200 million worth of light bulbs into the trash.
Oh, man. Oh,
there it goes.
There he is.
So,
that's right.
So the thing is, I think when we talk about Colombia has always, I think, provided great promise for export. A lot of what I saw in this article was challenges domestically. And I still think that it has some very compelling attributes in terms of its equatorial location,
100%.
soils, the agrarian populations, the landrace strains that come there. So in the long term, I think Colombia could continue to be very, very important. When you read about these articles and it's Canadian companies that are operating in Colombia, I can't help but wonder how much of it is the Colombia issue and the Colombia regulations versus Canadian companies going out and replicating Canadian mistakes that have already impacted other markets, other countries, other import-export arrangements.
Great point.
Would you call that? Would you call that, Yarrow, a Canadian boof trap?
CBT?
I'm going to take the maple syrup and the mousse. You can have the boof trap. But I think that when we talk about other markets and we see that it's Canadian multinationals in those other markets, we need to look at it with just a bit more granular lens, because how much of that is that market? How much of that is that Canadian hubris or replication of bad choices, bad executional missteps, et cetera, et cetera. It's too bad though, because I think Colombia does have a place on the world stage for cannabis.
And
I think absolutely so. I agree with you.
100%. Like you were saying, it has it's 72 degrees every single day of the year. It's got 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness, right? Every single day.
I mean, and Colombia,
it's a farming country. Everybody farms from the word go. If they can flip them from the coca growers
to
the government was working with is people who were growing, the coca leaf to grow cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with a company down there a couple of years ago, and it's difficult to get things moved along, for sure. And this company partnered with local tribes, and sharing the profit with them.
They shared it with the FARC. They shared it with the FARC.
With the FARC, but the local tribes. I'm sure the FARC had their hand out too, right? And the government has their hand out. Everyone's got their hand out.
Mm-hmm. All they need is a Persian down there. We'll have Iran-Contra ×2.
Oh, God. On that, we're going to go to a commercial. We're going to be right back.
Yeah, Jason. Shout out to Ronnie Reagan, the devil himself.
Right. No, boy.
The Control Tower from Highly Educated has perfected the dab. Utilizing the concept of thin film evaporation, you can waste none of it and taste all of it. The micro texture of the SE pillar increases nucleation at elevated temperatures. And with the tower propelling at 2,600 RPMs, it's certainly the most efficient dab experience to date. The Control Tower from Highly Educated.
Oh, man, and we're back. Oh, stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you hit that like button. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we read on today's show, you can read on our website at www.highat9news.com.
I'm Jason Beck, and this is Smoky Vanilla. And if you want to feel as good as I look, then you need to get yourself a stretch and smoke with Smoky Vanilla.
That's right, baby. I'm Smoky Vanilla with my background in kinesiology. I'm a sports massage therapist and stretch coach. I focus mostly on athletes who have chronic pain or injury due to their sport, or the legends of the chronic in the game, baby.
Oh, yeah, you know what it is. We just stretched, and now we're gonna smoke, because you know what it is.
That's right. I love intuitively creating a session based on the individual I'm working with. We'll go through a few assessments, look at the past health history, injury, or anything that's still affecting you today, and create a customized session just for you. Let's go.
Yes, and your berries. He's a second generation cultivator that doesn't always believe in second chances. Also the founder of Special Teams Consulting. Y'all know who it is. Up next, the Sebastopol sage himself, Yarrow Kubrin.
And the crowd goes wild.
The crowd goes as wild as they can, digesting after Christmas. And
happy belated Hanukkah too, man. We didn't give enough love to Hanukkah this year, man. So big up to Hanukkah.
I'll use it when we come back from the next commercial. I'll use my Hanukkah screensaver in the back and
spin your dreidel, baby.
Represent. So good morning. Tuesday, December 26th. This is Yarrow Kubrin, High 9 News. My article today is about New Jersey. Nuns fail to block new Atlantic City pot dispensary just feet from a covenant. Nuns
They're
fail
doing the
to
Mississippi one.
You're doing the Mississippi one. I'm doing the Nuns.
Oh, all right.
That didn't sound right, but you know what I meant.
Oh, boy.
Okay, there's no communion wafer involved. But anyway, Nuns fail to block new Atlantic City pot dispensary just feet from covenant. Catholic nuns in Atlantic City, New Jersey have lost out on their bid to block a cannabis dispensary just 150 feet from their covenant as local officials seek to make the area the pot capital of the East Coast. The Casino Reinvestment Development Authority, which acts as the city's planning agency within the tourism district, recently approved 2 planned dispensaries, including the one by the covenant, a business that would take the place of a former dry cleaners. Members of the Franciscan Sisters of the Renewal Covenant on Mississippi Avenue in the gambling Mecca have argued that they host classes, including some for teenagers, and sobriety meetings at their location, and therefore should not have a dispensary so close. They added in the CRDA that they were concerned about crime escalating in the area as a result of a new dispensary too. I'm actually Dutch, so I grew up in a country where marijuana was legalized, and I've seen a lot of things over the years, Sister Joseph Van Munster said at a November hearing, according to a transcript obtained by the Press of Atlantic City. She said there were already problems in the neighborhood with illicit drug use and alcohol use, and argued that a new dispensary could be harmful for those dealing with substance abuse issues and working towards recovery. But all the casinos not. But the CRDA approved the application for the proposed new dispensary near the Covenant. New Jersey law does not prohibit cannabis dispensaries from opening near such sites as it does with schools. Neither the Covenant nor CRDA responded to post requests for comments on Monday. The approval of the pot dispensary near the Covenant was the second time the board has okayed such a business in Atlantic City, despite concerns from church officials, according to the press. Over the summer, members of the Chelsea Baptist Church spoke out against a planned cannabis business about a block away, but that too wound up being approved by the board. They don't want to go anywhere else near the casino, but they don't care where else they go. They don't want them anywhere near the casino, but they don't care where else they go, Pastor Tom Weir told the press in September. He claimed that the board simply told church members to install video cameras or hire a tow truck company to keep unwanted vehicles off their lot when they expressed concerns about people smoking weed near their place or a place of worship or committing crimes. It seemed to me at the meeting they were all gung-ho, Weir said, of board support of the move. As far as I know, if it's there, we just have to put up with it. The CRDA rarely disapproves applications for new cannabis businesses in Atlantic City, which already has approved applications for indoor weed farms, a women-owned dispensary inside a former church, and an Amsterdam-style cannabis lounge. Mayor Marty Small's administration sees these new businesses as a powerful economic engine, potentially bringing in new jobs and new investments into the city. My focus is to make Atlantic City great, to make Atlantic City and the East Coast a hub for cannabis, Kashawn Cash McKinley told the city's cannabis czar. Per capita, the cannabis businesses that have already received approvals as of April would make Atlantic City the densest cannabis city in the state, according to the outlet. This is Yarrow Kubrin, High at 9 News. I'd like to know what you guys think.
I think the names in this story alone make it a great candidate for the next awesome Tubi movie. You have the Nuns being shut down by Mayor Marty Smalls, the cannabis czar, Kashawn Cash McKinley.
Should we call him Mighty Smalls? I mean, Smalls are the most popular SKU right now.
There's so much potential.
That is so funny.
Yes, and of course his name is Smalls, and he's in Atlantic City.
Yes. I mean, this is an interesting one because we have these sensitive use setbacks, and the majority of the time that includes any church of any denomination. But it sounds like this convent. Sorry, I don't kick it with a lot of nuns anymore.
Convents and convicts
anymore.
Which ones you choose?
Anymore. That was when I was wild and crazy. Okay, I'm mellow now. Okay, but there are these sensitive use setbacks, and the ones that seem to always have consensus is schools and churches, right? And so how you define schools becomes that next step. Does that include preschools? Does that include only schools on the first floor? What about schools on the second floor that don't interact with street traffic? Yada, yada, yada. And so with these places of religious worship, if you're talking about a place that doesn't include access to the public for praying, then it probably doesn't fall under those same sensitive use setbacks. The only challenge that I have is this idea that this could interfere with their recovery activities. I could see if there was odor from a consumption lounge, but if you're in like Sin City East and you're surrounded by a lot of casinos, it seems like there's probably a lot of sinning going on with or without cannabis dispensaries.
I would think that they would welcome the sin because that would just give them more people to reach out to evangelical to.
Right. Increases their flock.
Yeah.
Feed
exactly.
the flock.
Yeah.
Flock funnel.
It's just more
flock
people,
funnel.
People for
it was good for the goose, ain't always good for the gander.
More people for them to reach out to.
It's guys and dolls 2.0.
Dispensary will start selling Bio Jesus. We'll be out there on the street pimping it out.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll help.
I mean,
you got to watch out there in Atlanta.
I'm not a huge fan of these Benzinga stories because they always take and redistribute from other like larger stories because they took like Sister, what's her name? Sister Joseph Van Munster. They just took like the bullshit quote that they use in there. It says, Sister Joseph Van Munster, drawing on her Dutch experience with legal marijuana, told the CRDA at a hearing that a new dispensary could be harmful for people dealing with the substance abuse issues, working towards recovery. And then her quote that they used in here is, "I'm actually Dutch, so I grew up in a country where marijuana is legalized. So I've seen a few things." What has she seen?
Few things.
She's seen a few things. I mean, she's seen it.
Clearly, she's seen a few things.
I mean, she's definitely seen some shit.
Wait, hold on. Rico, when you are nunning hard, when you are nose to the book, when you are proselytizing, when you are filling the funnel of the flock, you don't know. You don't know what she's seen.
I've seen a thing or two in my day. And I tell you what.
You think she's seen a priest diddling a small boy, right?
Oh, you know, and on that, we're gonna keep this train rolling right here. We're gonna move right on in to Mr. Todd Denkin. He's the founder of Digipath Labs out there in Las Vegas, Nevada, as well as the Smuggleverse, where you can purchase all of your digital dank. That's right. It is coming up next. It is none other than Mr. Todd Denkin, the voice himself. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and whatever you celebrate. I hope you're having a good one also. This story is in the testing world. Mississippi regulators place a hold on a large number of medical marijuana after receiving an anonymous phone call, which is kind of silly as well. After an anonymous phone call alleged that Rapid Analytics Cannabis Testing Lab was not conducting the proper procedure for pesticides, Mississippi State Department of Health placed an administrative hold on all medical cannabis products that underwent testing at the Natchez, Mississippi-based facility, based on what Mamie Henry said, who is a lab spokesperson. Have no basis for anything except an anonymous call, which has shut the entire industry down pretty much because we do 70% of the testing in the state, Henry told the Mississippi Free Press on Thursday. Dispensaries cannot sell any cannabis that Rapid Analytics tested until the MSDH provides further instruction. Also added, it may cause some dispensaries to actually shut down. It's going to cause them to lose several weeks of sales. So added, dispensaries have been notified by the Mississippi Medical Cannabis Program of the products that can't be sold while the hold and retesting takes place. Dispensaries have been asked to close, and it is not all products that are on hold. Wednesday morning, the MSDH emailed Rapid Analytics to tell them about the anonymous tip. Both groups had an emergency Zoom meeting to review the lab's procedures and cannabis testing reports the past couple of months, Henry said. Mississippi has two medical cannabis labs, Rapid Analytics and Steep Hill, Mississippi, in Jackson, Mississippi. All cannabis that Steep Hill has tested still considered safe for patients to consume. Cultivators or cannabis growers must send their products to at least one of the testing labs before they can sell the medical cannabis to dispensaries. Cultivators choose to send their products to both companies for testing, like 74 Sons in Canton, Mississippi, Consultant Hardy Case said. All of 74 Sons medical cannabis is still good to sell and will be on dispensaries' shelves since Steep Hill approved the products, he added. Dispensaries, a lot of them right now, have products on their shelves that have already been tested and passed, but now, because of the administrative hold, they can't sell it, Case told Mississippi Free Press. It's just sitting there, even though that product may be perfectly fine. Reassured patients, cultivators, and dispensary owners that the lab is dealing with it very, very, very rapidly and very professionally. There was 3 verys in the quote, which I find amazing. And very professionally to ensure the state opens up as quickly as possible. Rapid Analytics is retesting all cannabis samples, even though the MSDH does not require them to do extra analysis, she added. We're at the most respected and the most used lab in the entire state, so I don't know who would make this anonymous call, Henry said. It may cause some dispensaries to actually shut down. Getting into the Mississippi medical cannabis industry is an expensive, difficult process. Having issues from one of the state's 2 testing labs can be detrimental to patients and dispensaries. Case also had so many hurdles to jump through as a state and as an industry as a whole in Mississippi. So it's just really disappointing that whatever happened with Rapid Analytics wasn't handled immediately and rectified so the patients wouldn't basically be hit with a huge shortage. Trees and cultivators are waiting for guidance from the MSDH. And they say that provided everything to the state they requested, and everything they are doing is correct. And product delays or recalls is never optimal, but Case said the improper protocol claims not have come at a worse time. Henry said the complaint seemed to be strategically timed with Christmas this week. So the holidays are approaching. Case said patients are trying to stock up on cannabis. They might have trouble finding it at their local dispensary. According to Case, said, I've talked to one of my employees this morning. He went to a dispensary locally and they didn't have any product. May cause some dispensaries to actually shut down. They're really driving this point of this might actually shut down dispensaries. Mississippi Medical Cannabis Program issued a statement on December 21st informing patients the medical cannabis product on hold. It said, protect the health and safety of medical cannabis patients. Administrative hold has been placed on large number of medical cannabis products. Retesting can be conducted to ensure the various products meet regulatory standards. Also added, the Mississippi Medical Cannabis Program is taking swift action to address the situation, with retesting being done as quickly as possible. Another problem with testing labs in the industry. I'm Todd Denkin with High at 9 News. But honestly, an anonymous call to shut down anything without an investigation, in my opinion, is ridiculous. Right? And honestly, if you're auditing lab data, it's really simple because you look right on the instrument, make sure whatever's on the instrument is, reflected on the COA. So it is an easy audit trail that you can find out if someone is cheating, and to close down and put all of these dispensaries out of business out the investigation is silly. And honestly, the only way they can prove that they're doing everything right is to retest it, but retest exact same samples. So whatever it is they have left over, not brand new samples from the facility. Anyway, what do you guys think?
Todd, man, oh man, I'm willing to bet that this anonymous caller isn't so anonymous.
Oh yeah? You think it's another lab calling the other lab who had 70% of the market share?
I think it definitely smells something like that, or maybe it was some regulator that just wanted to close the whole thing down, and they had it called in.
This sounds eerily similar to what happened to Veritas Labs in Michigan. When they had that $250 million recall that was not founded by anything. And then they attempted to sue the state, and the state shut that lawsuit down, claiming that it's not federally legal. So you're shit out of luck.
Yep, this does a lot sound like that.
In previous life, when in between being a total teenager and a 20-something, there was a chapter where I was a rave promoter. And I used to get all the permits and deal with the police and get these permits to do these. We call them electronic music.
I can totally see.
I would love to see. I would love to see some flip phone video footage of Yarrow Kubrin in the black lights.
I want to see Yarrow selling glow sticks and $20 waters.
There's a place never called the synagogue. Raves. That was probably you.
I was a little bit on the food chain in terms of the glow stick sales, but I executive produced about 18 of these. But it was a rough and tumble time, and even though we got permits, it was a full contact sport, and people would guard a date. And if they didn't want anybody else's events happening that Saturday night, they'd do anything they can. And one of the techniques that they would do if there was a competing party is they would call in and say that there was a bomb at that other party. Because the police couldn't not take this bomb threat seriously. They'd go to this event, they'd shut down the music, it would ruin the vibe for 15 minutes. A bunch of dogs would come through or something. And it was a pretty despicable way of blocking your competitors, right? I can't imagine what happened with this unsubstantiated claim. I could just see it like a 12-year-old with one of those Radio Shack voice changers. Hello, ma'am, there's Asper. How do you get an unsubstantiated claim and not investigate who's claiming it, why they're claiming it, where did the call come from? Did we trace the IP address?
Oh, in Nevada, it's part of the legislation that if they get any kind of complaint, they have to investigate it, whatever it is. And the CCB in Nevada spends a lot of time doing that because a lot of people do complain.
You know what,
the reason why I'm drawing parallels with the Michigan case is because they were allegedly snitched on by a small lab that was losing business to Veritas Labs, and they said that they were cooking their. They said that they're cooking their books. They said that they were lab shopping, like all this other crazy stuff, and it was a small like social equity lab that was complaining about this. There was no proof of anything. There was no hard evidence of anything. There was just higher lab numbers than what they were producing, and the state looked into it and shadily offboarded a bunch of those legislators that were on the cannabis czar's team, and nobody really heard about that. And this thing made it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it was just stomped out. They're like, nope, nothing to see here. I think this is unfortunately, this is in my mind, I think this is a notch on the board and on the side of those looking to legalize quicker. Right. And the reason I say unfortunately, because I'm not pro legalization. I want to decriminalize like everything. Right. I say keep things the way as much as we can, keep them the way they are. But the lab race is heating up, and you have a lot of these folks that they're in bed with narrative, not necessarily with who is in charge of the state, but they are in bed with who follows the narrative of who's in charge of the state. And in Michigan, unfortunately, they're riding with the folks that not necessarily have a leg to stand on, and we can see more and more of this happening. And as we go towards quote unquote states' rights, when it comes to lab testing, how they operate and all that stuff, if they are following the narrative, if they are staying in good graces of the powers that be, like, you're not going to get bothered when you go out and do stuff like this. Like, and you're not in the pocket of those legislators.
Right. It's such a paradox. What we really need, is just a blanket standardization that everyone has to follow, so that there's one method. No, we don't. Yep. There's not one method for running all of these.
Yeah, but the flip side to that is there a blanket methodology for growing weed, right?
No, but that doesn't matter. It's the lab testing. What
do you mean it doesn't matter?
Political quantification of these things that's fucking all this up, right? It's like
I'm all for standardization, but
in your cannabis grow, you go to the lab to verify your product. So you can spend $5, you can spend $5 million making your grow, but that lab holds your entire business in its hands. So if there's not one blanket methodology to conduct testing on all these, to calibrate instruments, to do sample preparation, all these things, Todd, there's going to be these variables, and it's going to, and someone's business hangs in the balance. That's fucked. Right. So if you don't have,
I totally agree. And, we take that very, very seriously.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And some labs do, some labs don't. We definitely do. You're right.
I recommend the states that are trying to do that, but it's tough.
I'm all for standardization. I just don't think it's an easy task to make happen. Right? There's different brands of instrumentation. What if I want to buy this and you want to buy that?
That's why we all have to fight for higher
different companies that sell standards. I've tested different company standards that were 10 or 12% off.
Don't test my standards, please. Those are very near and dear to me. But what I would just say is that
you have standards. You have standards.
Separate from standardization and ISO 17000 and whatever, and how long it's going to take until everybody does things the same way, there should be a standard for what we do when there's an allegation and there's no proof yet. And how do we protect the supply chain? Because the end goal is protecting the consumer. Is the consumer protected by something that's an overreaction? No. Is a consumer protected by something that's an underreaction? No. And so it would just be nice if they had a SOP for when they received an allegation and they did some additional spot testing. But if there's no smoke and there's no fire, and it only takes one nefarious call to shut down a supply chain, it's too sensitive, and it has the ramifications can be too large for new
All right, you should go be Diddy's lawyer, bro. With that explanation, bro, you should go be Diddy's lawyer. He could use you in court. But let me say, there are SOPs for this. It's what does the lab say? What does the quantification of that data say? That's the problem. So the chicken, the egg, the cart, the horse, same. It's like we gotta take care of one.
Look, there's good doctors and good lawyers, and bad doctors and bad lawyers, and good growers and bad growers, and lab guys and bad lab guys. I mean, there just are. Right? I mean, labs that you look, it's a THC war in California. Can you get accurate results in California? Can you?
Within 15% RSD.
I think that's every state. But we got to keep this. We got to keep this train rolling. And Yarrow on your little bomb threat thing comment. Funny thing about that is that I remember back in the day when a lot of my friends didn't have their homework done or weren't prepared for certain tests or whatnot, they would call in a bomb threat to the school, and we would all get evacuated out to the front of the school, and therefore the test would be averted because they would have to investigate that. So I wouldn't put it past that. I wouldn't put it past that if people are doing
Jason, you got one more for us today?
Yes.
While you're followed around by that gray sedan everywhere you go.
Oh boy. Want to volunteer, you guys? That's right. Because these Delaware community events give you weed in exchange for help. When it came time to present the pot grant, the ganja, or bestow the bud, however you want to say it, the organizers of Delaware's first Joints for Junk decided to hand out the promised pre-rolls at the start of the 2-hour trash cleanup in Merrillsboro this fall. While the Delaware Cannabis Advocacy Network has been organizing community events ever since its founding back in 2013, this was the first time it was doing one since marijuana was legalized in Delaware 8 months ago. So the nonprofit advocacy group brainstormed a new way to attract volunteers, give out grass. And they didn't even wait until the volunteers put in the work first. Oh, man, I feel like Hunter Biden had something to do with this because it's in Delaware. People pre-registered, showed up, signed a waiver, and we gave them a joint, says Zoe Patchell, president of Delaware Can. And actually, nobody took the joint and left. It was a really positive, inspiring day. That's in quotes. Once they landed on the catchy event name, they had to find a location for the community service project, eventually landing in Millsboro, the Sussex County town of about 7,000, whose council had just voted to prohibit the sale and manufacturing of marijuana, in quotes. There was a significant community support there while we were involved in opposing the vote, so it just seemed like a great place to do it, Patchell says. So, did the cannabis giveaway work? It sure did. The event even drew more than 50 volunteers over the age of 21, with each getting a pre-rolled joint, which was donated by members of the nonprofit group. Under the new Delaware law, anyone can gift an adult up to an ounce of marijuana, in quotes. It was probably one of the best turnouts for a community service project, Patchell says, adding that volunteers didn't light up on site, and there were a number of new people we had never met before, and a few of them even became members. More than 24 bags of trash were collected from the area surrounding the Millsboro Town Center and the same place where the town council voted against marijuana just 6 weeks prior at November 6th public hearing. From 10 a.m. to noon, 6 teams were deployed in fluorescent yellow vests to pick up any garbage they found using large garbage bags and bags of the same color. While there were no issues reported on their first Joints for Junk project, some residents came out from their homes to ask what was happening as they saw the brightly dressed volunteers roaming the neighborhood. It was a really positive reception, Patchell says. We just told them we were here to make Millsboro more green. And Delaware Can usually hosts 2 major community cleanups each year and is planning another Joints for Junk event this spring. Expect the same setup as in Millsboro, and come out and help and receive some reefer for your time. So where will the next one be? They haven't locked in the location just yet, and in quotes they say, "We just want to show everyone that cannabis consumers care about the community, and a lot of the negative stereotypes are simply not true," says Patchell, whose group is now working on expanding expungement, increasing access for medical patients, home cultivation, and more. We care just like everybody, they say. Well. Joints for junk, you guys. A whole bunch of trash. And it's probably trash weed that they gave out too. But what do you guys think?
Joints for junk.
I think it's a great idea. Joints for anything.
It's like cash for punkers.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. Joints for junk. What do you
I think
if you had all the weed,
if you had all to do with Delaware, the Bidens I want to stay away from.
If you had,
I was going to leave the Biden name out of this because you were talking about Delaware and everything.
To me, that's the first thing that comes to mind.
It is. I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
I'm just saying.
Me too.
I just wonder, since it was so much junk, okay, if they put it in their trunk, were they advertising that they had junk in the trunk?
Oh.
I don't know.
A dad joke from a guy who's not even a dad.
Yes, that's right.
So he says.
Yes.
So he says.
Mm-hmm.
You sure do have a rather a large affinity for dad jokes. Just saying, Jason.
Yeah.
Jason's a great uncle. Uncle Jason's amazing. You know, he's
Uncle Jason.
He's the source. He's the source of all the dad jokes. Actually, he's like the dad encyclopedia.
I'm a father to many.
He's like a father to us all.
I'm a father to many. Yes, father to many.
When I gave up my title,
father to many trappers.
When I gave up my title as world's greatest uncle, you know what? I gave up my privileges, my rights to give a baby back. Mm-hmm. Those babies, when you're the uncle, babies come with a warranty.
Mm-hmm.
That little thing starts leaking.
Oh man, you got a warranty.
It starts making weird noises. You can
you're
always
a grandfather too. That also works. So
I thought that's why they made diapers.
You stuck with that. You stuck with that decision when you're a dad.
Boy.
So just remember that, Jason. Just remember.
Stick with it.
So as we call to a close to our first day of Kwanzaa programming.
Could take us out, Rico.
Joining us.
Could take us out.
Yet another episode of High at 9 News. You can catch us live weekdays, 9 a.m. Pacific, high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our super fans showing love, getting their comments posted live on the big screen, and our live audience and online supporters catching us across all media platforms, tuning in each day to the headlines of chaos, also known as the developing cannabis industry. To our vetted correspondents tuning in from all over, bringing us much needed variety of perspective and your respected opinions to the table. To our production team, Cloud Media Partners, our sponsors, keeping the lights on and our AV struggles to a minimum. And big shout out to Adam behind the scenes. I don't know if he's there today, but I'm sure your hair looks great, Adam. I'm sure it looks great.
Damn, son.
Y'all don't believe me, man. Wait till y'all see a picture of Adam. He has this shit perfectly feathered.
He's got
looking like
feather,
a young BG.
That's right.
Looking like a young
Looking
BG.
like Kenny Loggins. Looking like the Ashkenaz Kenny Loggins.
Michael McDonald on the track. As always, Cannabis Sativa L, the reason we show up to read these stories every single day. Thank you, baby girl. It has been Tuesday, the day after Christmas, the first day of Kwanzaa, December 26th. The show's over. You've all been blessed with the top industry headlines. Hope it's enough for you to put in your pipe and smoke at least until tomorrow. Sebastopol Sage, Sarasota, Santa. You got it for today, man. Yarrow Kubrin, take us out.
I know what you were trying to do there, but your handoff was the equivalent of a grand mal seizure in the middle of.
I might have a little something extra in my tea today, bro. Maybe it's the day after Christmas.
You might have a little extra in your tea, but you just teabagged me. That was not a handoff. Here's the deal, okay? All you who watch this, share it, smash the like button. We will see you tomorrow.
Yes. Much love, Yarrow.
Much love. Make sure to fight for those higher standards, people.